Hey, because I want to talk about a certain movie, The Eternals, right now, and because my last video, the video that was uploaded also today, was just Ghostly Bodies, my novel, and I want to give you some content that maybe you're looking forward to a little bit more. Some people, like the two people who watch these reviews, sometimes use my opinion to judge whether or not to watch a movie. So I wanted to talk a bit about that and then the nature of criticism in the Eternals. So, yeah, let's just get started. This might be a shorter review, or it might be me talking for a very long time for no reason. I do hope that you have fun, though. Oh, also, this is going to be unscripted, so it's going to be a little bit messier than my average review, which are already incredibly messy. Fun! Because this movie is just coming out, a lot of people haven't seen it yet, and I'm only going to give like some minor spoilers, unlike all of the rest of my reviews, which tend to be much meatier in regards to that. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the themes that I saw and some of the other stuff, but this is mostly going to be very minor things that you can probably glean from the trailer because I don't necessarily want to spoil this movie for anyone because I think that it is very good, and if you're looking at movie reviews of it from professional critics, I do not feel like they're giving it a fair shake. I think that they are being rather mean to it constantly for no reason. So there will be some spoilers. Again, I'm going to try and keep it very minor, things that you can usually glean from the trailer. The base plot of this movie is just that there is a group of superheroes that are sent to Earth called the Eternals to fight a threat called the Deviants. Deviants are these weird evolving monsters that are more animalistic, whereas the Eternals are very human in a lot of ways. They have magic powers and can do a lot, but they walk, talk, and breathe like humans. Well, sometimes they don't need to breathe. But it's the most ambitious movie that Marvel has done in a long time. Basically, this is a philosophical diatribe about the nature of heroism and what it means to be a hero, what it costs to be a hero, and why there needs to be heroes, kind of. It's thematically the most interesting Marvel movie currently out, and I adore this movie. It's not as fun necessarily as some of the other Marvel movies. I had more fun watching Shang-Chi, for instance, but it is still in my top 5 or 10 Marvel movies ever. And if you want me to do a full list of those so that you can kind of gauge my opinion against your opinion, put that down in the comments. Tell me, because sometimes I don't have the time to record a full review, but doing a tier list video sounds kind of fun. The core of the movie follows a character called Cersei and her relationship with a lover and another Eternal, Icarus. Those are the main characters, but this movie has so many other characters like Makari, Druig, Fastos, and Sprite, Kinga. There's a lot of them. And while I think that the movie is far from perfect in some respects, it does have some major pacing issues. For instance, because when you're dealing with a cast that's just this big, it's inevitably going to have it. And as Screen Rant kind of pointed out, it might have been better as a miniseries, such as Loki, but I still feel that it's done a remarkable job going about all of this. For the past 10 years, all I have ever heard about Marvel movies is, oh hey, these are all exactly the same. These are boring cookie cutter movies. This movie is not a cookie cutter movie at all. It's beautiful. The cinematography is actually like one of the standout points, which in most Marvel movies is passable, honestly. It's just never been impressive. In this movie, I think it's impressive. The shot composition, the way that the colors work, the way that, the superhero fights are handled, it is very different than any other Marvel movie. It's also, story-wise, more ambitious. It's got a lot of stuff. It tackles real philosophical questions. And granted, it's still a Marvel movie, so it's not like a full indie film where it's just a meditation on all of these things. We do still have a bunch of action set pieces. It's still very interesting visually, and it's just getting to know these characters and why they're fighting, which in some Marvel movies is a weakness. It's been compared to Zack Snyder's Justice League, and at first I thought that that was an unfair comparison. I thought that that was rather mean, but that's a absolutely apt comparison in a couple of ways. One, the Eternals draws direct parallels between a lot of the characters, such as Icarus and Superman. They are very similar characters in what they usually do in the movie and the purpose that they kind of serve as the team leader, but also, the kind of brooding guy that the DCEU has tended to prefer. And as a response to the Justice League, this movie's amazing because it shows that a large team movie, while not being perfect by any means, can be still very interesting. We have another character, Makari, who is a direct analog for the Flash. And I know that Marvel has speedsters too, but widely Marvel's one speedster that they've shown in the MCU is kind of Swiss cheese right now. Spoilers for Age of Ultron, I guess. The bottom line is, this movie does everything that Justice League was setting out to do, and I mean both Justice League and the Snyder Cut, and does it just better. The acting is better, it's less stiff. The characters do come off a little stiffer than the average human, but that's because widely, they're aliens who are just spending a long time learning how to be human. The cast has great chemistry a lot of the time. Kit Harington and Cersei just work together. Every time they're on screen together, it's fantastic. Icarus and Cersei seem to be very fond of each other, and you can believe plausibly that, they're in that weird, awkward stage where they're trying to be in love, but don't necessarily know how to bridge that gap, which is very interesting. It was very fun for me to watch. Angelina Jolie is fantastic as Thena. I adored every scene with her, and I honestly straight up thought that she was going to phone it in. I did not believe that she necessarily wanted to be in a Marvel movie. It was just one of those highly successful things that is good for your career in a lot of ways. Same with Salma Hayek. My biggest complaint about the movie, outside of the minor pacing issues that I think are very difficult to solve in such an ambitious movie, I wanted more of a lot of these characters. I wanted to spend more time with Cersei. I wanted to spend more time with Makari and Druig and Fastos and everyone. Every character in this movie is interesting. And while I have a couple of complaints about it, overall, I still enjoyed the hell out of it, and I highly recommend it. And on a second rewatch, because I did watch this movie in theaters twice, but I did wear my mask, and I did, not cough on anyone, and I am vaccinated. Get vaccinated. The second watch through is actually a lot better in a lot of ways. I liked the movie the first time, and I thought that the second time it was just much more digestible in many facets. So, yeah, that's the extent of this review. Now I kind of want to talk about the nature of film criticism, because I don't necessarily agree with the overall critic attitude towards this movie. In a lot of ways, I disagree with critics more often than not. I think that there's always a weird thing that the audience and the critics do not necessarily agree on, just because of the nature of the different ways that critics watch movies as opposed to the general public. And this movie is the clearest example of that. I'm a movie critic myself, and I realize that I cannot possibly be objective about this. This is why I don't typically give scores on my movies, like your movie sucks, or like Daniel B. Green. I don't process movies in terms of, oh, I think that this is a solid 9 out of 10, or hey, this movie sucks, it's a 2 out of 10. I usually just go generally, is this good? Is this bad? Am I able to suspend my disbelief? Was I convinced by it? Why does this or this not work for me? And that's what my videos are about. That's what I try to explain to people, and I hope that comes across. But in the case of this, critics are giving this movie like a 40% review score versus an 80% of audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. That distinction is vast. This is the lowest rated Marvel movie ever by critics, which is weird because All I ever hear about Marvel from professional movie people, except for people like, I don't know, Movie Bob, is that these movies are by the numbers, cookie cutter bullshit, and they don't respect them. All I ever hear is, oh, this movie is the exact same as this movie. Iron Man is the exact same as Doctor Strange, is the exact same as every other Marvel origin movie. And this movie takes some big fucking risks and is fascinating for it. It is, again, the most interesting movie. It's not the movie that I had the most fun with recently, but it is the most interesting movie that Marvel has released since probably Civil War or Infinity War, depending. And before that, it was Winter Soldier. Because, oddly enough, despite the fact that I don't really like Captain America personally, he has the most interesting movies in a lot of ways. So, I just kind of want to talk for a moment about why I think that critics, even critics like me who are, not necessarily paid well to watch movies all the time, I want to talk about the distinction between audience and critic, the mob versus the elite. The first thing I want to bring up is just the fact that critics are just people, fam. And I know that's pretty obvious by the way that people just have opinions. Like anyone who's thinking about it for a moment realizes that critics are not these omniscient people who understand everything about a movie. My favorite example is how everyone lambasted Jennifer's Body, a black comedy parodying the rape revenge genre, and thought that it was just a bad schlocky horror movie. It's just not. It is meant to be a parody of bad schlocky horror movies and exploitative movies. But there's obviously this weird distinction, right? We respect critical opinions and we kind of disrespect the opinion of the mob. One of the most common things about this in particular is critics do complain a lot about these paint by numbers Marvel movies, which are in a lot of ways the same formula over and over and over again. Whereas these same movies are generally beloved by the people. And I just find that fascinating. And I think that part of it is that critics, inherently by the nature of their job, watch too many movies, so things that repeat themselves a lot, tropes and contrivances, will just bite at them a little bit more than the average movie-going public who maybe watches 3 or 4 movies a year in theaters. And with that said, I don't want to throw shade at movie critics. I am technically a movie critic. I'm technically a professional movie critic. I make $12 a month. But if you want to make me more money, please consider subscribing to my Patreon. I would love to do this more efficiently and do more reviews of more modern movies. But I also try to look innately at what works and what doesn't work in the movie, and I try to give every movie a fair shake. Even movies that I do not like. There are a lot of movies that I reviewed, like Paranormal Activity and Joyride, which I thought were garbage fucking movies, but I still try to be fair to them and say, hey, this is what works and this doesn't. Whereas a movie reviewer sometimes doesn't do that. And the next month, in December, it's all just that, me trying to be positive about movies that I intrinsically loathe. I hate Man of Steel. I hate Batman vs. Superman. I did not enjoy the Snyder Cut. But I'm not going to just be negative for however long those reviews are for the sake of it. Because they don't do everything perfectly, far from it. But they do some things pretty well. And I think that movie critics do not always give that a fair shake. And I'd also like to point out that, weirdly, this movie is reviewed worse than Iron Man 2 and Thor 2, which in my opinion, my expert professional opinion, are the worst Marvel movies. They're just long and meandering and 4 or 5 movies stuffed into one. How? How could you possibly think that this very well-composed movie is worse than those two? I would love an explanation on that. And I know that not necessarily everyone who reviewed this movie reviewed Thor 2 or Iron Man 2, but, even still, the average score being significantly lower by 20% or so is ridiculous. This movie is well made. Even if you don't gel with the story, which I get it. It has some pacing issues. It introduces a lot of characters and there's a lot going on, and there is just a portion of the movie that is just a straight exposition dump. And it probably could have been more naturally integrated, though for the life of me thinking about it, I'm not sure how. You could have probably done something with that. But I just don't understand how anyone could possibly think that this movie is worse than Thor 2 or Iron Man 2 or literally anything in the DCEU. But then again, this movie has super deep themes, and for me, that's just masturbatory. I will masturbate to themes all day. I love deep themes, and this movie has a lot of them. It has so many issues that it brings up. It has so much to talk about, such as, like I said, what it means to be a hero, what it means to be human, what it means to be alive, whether or not people have a moral obligation to act, and a bunch of other stuff that would spoil the movie a lot. So, I think I'm going to end it there. So yeah, my review over The Eternals, in short, is go out and watch it. You can wait till it's on Disney Plus, but I think that it is a very, very good movie. I think if you're tired of the average Marvel movie, this is a breath of fresh air. And I think that if you're still wanting more Marvel, this also serves that purpose. The characters are funny. The characters are fun to be around. The characters do Marvel stuff. It is still a superhero movie. It's just a more thoughtful, more interesting superhero movie. Could it have maybe worked a little bit better as a series instead of, a full feature-length movie? Give these characters more time to be explored? I mean, maybe, but then we wouldn't get as cool special effects. And the action would have been farther between, which I think is maybe one of the problems that people had with this movie, is it does spend long stretches just kind of talking philosophically about stuff. I also don't think that that's the only thing that people are having trouble with. Brie Larson pointed out a while ago that straight white men tend to dominate the review sphere. And I know, I'm a straight cishet man, and I'm, not the person that she necessarily wants to be reviewing her movie. My voice is pretty much everywhere, if we take it by demographic. And this movie has the most diverse cast of any Marvel movie. And I'm not necessarily saying that anyone is racist or sexist or whatever. I'm just saying that it's a possibility that we should keep in mind. Because this is the first movie with an Asian female lead in a Marvel movie. And the audience score was actually much lower when this first started because people were review bombing it because there is a black gay couple in the movie. And this is the first movie where that would be incredibly difficult to just cut out for China or Saudi Arabia. And people, before they were able to watch the movie, were pissed about it and review bombing it. And I'm wondering if some of that bigotry, as we found out still very much exists in the country, is spilling over into the review sphere. I hope not. But I also don't see a better explanation, necessarily, for why people hate this movie so much that the average score from reviewers is less than half competent. Because that's how I interpret a 4 out of 10 movie, or a 2 out of 5. That means to me, what you're saying is, this movie failed at what it was trying to do. It got an F. If the average score is that low, you need to do your homework and tell me why. And I don't feel like a lot of reviewers did that. I read a lot of the reviews, and most of them just blame, too many characters or pacing, which is nonsense because in any other genre, that would have just been fine. Inception has 370 odd characters, and yet that's one of the highest reviewed movies in a while. People love that movie. Anyway, I just wanted to talk a bit about this. I hope that you enjoyed this kind of different format a little bit. It's hopefully a little bit easier to edit. With that said, if you're looking for more superhero content that kind of deals with issues, actual issues, and big themes, I'm releasing a superhero web novel that I'll eventually probably publish as a physical one, like I did for Ghostly Bodies and Plaything of Existence when I'm done with it. But as of right now, You can read Smashgal and Esvanir for free online whenever you like. It's a lot of fun. Basically, we have Superwoman or Supergirl dealing with problems that she's ill equipped to solve. She can punch real good, she can stop bad guys. Yeah, that's easy, relatively speaking. But she has to deal with real systems of power. And the fact that, not everything is morally black and white. One of her childhood friends, Esvanir, is a thief, but he steals things in a Robin Hood-esque manner to provide them to the poor, to make sure that, the poor still survive. That's linked down below along with my other novels that you can either buy or read online for free, either way. And if you like my content, why not support me on Patreon or share this video? Comment more things that you'd like my thoughts on if you enjoyed this. Give me a like on this video. Beyond that, I do hope that you have a wonderful day. This has been Sean, your half movie reviewer, half mob attendant, signing off.